Good morning, YouTube. Good afternoon or good evening, no matter where you're watching. I know we have viewers from across the world. Thank you for joining the DutyRon channel. I appreciate each and every one of you being live here on a Saturday morning for me. Actually, I had a late night last night. It's 2 in the afternoon Eastern time. I just want to say a special thank you to my Patreon supporters, my channel members, the channel moderators, and everybody who subscribes to this wonderful community that we all have created, the DutyRon family. Thank you so much. My name is DutyRon, retired New York City police detective with 20 plus years of law enforcement. And we are talking with my good friend Mav over in California. I'm not going to give away her exact location, but she's over in the California region. So thank you so much to Mav joining. She happens to be a great friend of the channel. She's been a guest on the DutyRon channel. Her cousin was a victim of heinous murder back in 2017. Clara Foreman, wife, mother of 2 children to Jacob Foreman, was killed December 17th, 2017 in a heinous fashion. We spoke about it on previous live streams. This horrific crime was Chris Watts-esque. It actually mirrored what Chris Watts did after this crime was committed. He wiped out his 2 beautiful daughters, Yasina, who was 7 years old at the time, and Karina, who was 8 years old. Beautiful, beautiful family. And I'm going to first introduce Mav B. I like to call her Mav B because I don't want to blurt out her information all across the Twitter sphere. So thank you to Mav B for joining. It's a pleasure to have you. It's an honor, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much, DutyRon. I have appreciated your channel for a very long time, and I have been a fan of true crime. I never thought I'd find my family in the middle of a true crime and a murder case, and I appreciated how you have taken the time to really know our family and myself and get to a little bit more details on what had happened to Clara.
Yes, and you know what's important to me, Mav, is that you reached out to me after you saw the video I did about a year ago about your cousin. And the way you reached out to me touched me because it's exactly what my intentions were. I always, and I speak about this all the time, I always bring forward a case with the consideration of families and victims. And as we know, the Suzanne Morphew case, it's a mother of 2 beautiful children, grown girls, went missing on Mother's Day here in 2020. That's May 10th, 2020. And she's just disappeared, just vanished off the face of the earth. And we have so many people in the true crime community, Mav, including yourself, who have reached out to me, who have spoken to me, and they look to law enforcement for answers because, right, we all want answers to where our loved one went. And you and I spoke about this. My cousin, who was a victim of the World Trade Center disaster, the largest attack on our country, a terrorist attack, he was 30 years old. He left his home, went out to work at the World Trade Center as a journey foreman in an electrical union, a father of 2 beautiful newborn and 18-month-old kid, never returned. He just vanished. And to this day, his wife and his kids, who are now grown, they don't even know. They don't know what happened, how he was killed. I mean, we all assume how it happened, but nobody knows. So this is what I'd like to see. This is what I would like to do. I'd like to have a conversation with you in regards to Suzanne Morphew and also in regards to your experience with your family, your beautiful family. And I, and on behalf of all of my subscribers, I tip my cap to you for having the strength and the courage to do this. It is not easy to talk about a loved one. This is your beloved cousin who you have beautiful photos that you showed me. And remember, we went through the verification process, me and you. That was part of my police background. I said, I need to really know that you really are cousins with this person. And you showed me family photos. You opened up your home to me, which was beautiful. So thank you for that. I'm going to show a quick clip for the viewers who do not know what's going on or what went on with Clara and her family. So I thank you for letting me and allowing me. I asked her approval before I did this. This is going to be a clip from breaking news of December 17th of 2017. So this is probably maybe a little bit, or the next day, or maybe even that same day. So I'm going to run this clip, and just bear with me as I share this screen with you guys. Okay, you and I will be off the screen, Mav. Actually, we will be on it. I'm going to let it go full screen.
To breaking news now, a Kelowna father who pleaded guilty to murdering his wife and 2 young daughters was sentenced this afternoon.
Norma Reed is following this in the Breaking News Center tonight. Norma.
Well, Jacob Foreman has been sentenced to life in prison with no chance of parole for 35 years. And a warning, some of the details in the story are disturbing. Foreman pleaded guilty to second-degree murder for killing his wife, Clara, and to 2 counts of first-degree murder for killing his 2 young daughters. Their bodies were found inside their Kelowna home in December 2017, just days before Christmas. I heard that Foreman used a child's toy to choke one of his daughters to death. People outside court today wearing shirts that said "This one's for Clara" were too emotional to speak on camera this afternoon. So Crown got what it asked for in terms of this being a consecutive sentence. 25 years for the first-degree murders of his daughters and 10 after that for the second-degree killing of his wife. This type of stacked sentencing for mass murderers is a first in BC since changes were made to the criminal code back in 2011. Back to you.
Thank you, Norma.
Okay, so that is the news clip, and I'm going to read a little bit of the article that's just below here. I'll highlight it as I read it. It says, Kelowna, British Columbia, a man who murdered his wife during an argument about his drinking. This is all alleged because Mav and I have spoken about this. This is also the drinking part. We don't have confirmation of this, but we do think that it might be true. He was having an argument. She was arguing with him about drinking. About his drinking. He took his daughters to church before smothering them and was sentenced Monday to 35 years in prison before he's eligible for parole. Jacob Foreman pleaded guilty earlier this month to second-degree murder of his wife, Clara, on December 17th, and the 2 charges of first-degree murder and the death of his 7-year-old Yasina and 8-year-old Karina. God rest their souls, all of them. This is a heinous crime. He confessed to the police. Jacob Foreman hit his wife with a sledgehammer, and the court heard the woman's last words. She must have called 911, I believe. After the second of 3 blows, she said, "What are you doing?" This is a woman's last plea. Mav's cousin saying that to her husband, the person who she trusted, who was the father of their children. After telling the girls to put on their pajamas and letting them watch Netflix, Foreman told his daughters that he wanted to play a game with them. He first took the 8-year-old Yasina to the bedroom and choked her from behind, and then continued to choke her until her heart stopped. Horrific. What an evil, sick monster. Foreman also used a child's toy, a horse head on a stick. We've all seen that toy, to apply pressure to Yasina's throat. After murdering Yasina, Foreman killed 7-year-old Karina the same way. Foreman, who owned a .22 caliber rifle, then spent several hours contemplating suicide, but decided against it because he's a coward. Justice Alan Benton sentenced Foreman to consecutive life sentences, the first time ever in BC history, and without parole for the deaths of his daughter, and 10 years without parole for the murder of his wife. I feel that this sentence was disgusting, that he should be behind bars for the rest of his life and never see the light of day. This is my opinion, and my opinion only. Let me get Mav back and stand by. Okay. All right, Mav, we're back. Sorry to go through that. I wanted everybody in the chat, there's almost 200 people here now, to understand the enormity and the amount of pain that your family has gone through the loss of your cousin. So, again, I know that's difficult to hear, but you're a strong woman, and I tip my cap to you for being able to come and speak out about this. So thank you for allowing me to show our viewers that. Did I miss anything? Did I miss anything in that?
No, one of the things that I did want to talk about, it was the thing that really stuck and kept hitting me in my heart when I heard about the Suzanne Morphew case, was that that when she went missing. And you know, everybody hopes for the outcome that they're going to be found alive and that they, you know, that it's some accident, and, you know, the worst of it is that they've got some scrapes and bruises. And at this point, I don't think anybody is really in truth hoping for that. They want to find her. They want to find her so they can bring her home. And that not knowing what happened and just waiting for answers and having to search for them is something that breaks my heart. As you know, not having that final answer, not being able to lay them truly to rest and having that that closure. And for us, so one thing I did want to correct is that Clara, the last words that we're hearing, we have to take Jacob's words for it. We have to take him at his word. And so we don't actually have the outside of what he has confessed to and told us, and told, you know, prosecutors and family members. We don't actually know, and it's just his retelling, because she didn't call 911. No one was there to help her.
Okay.
And
So that's a news report. That's kind of, you could take that as, you know, because as you just said, how are we going to take this guy's word for it? He is trying to, you know, what's also interesting about your case, and I know we're tying this into Suzanne Morphew and her family, what they're going through, her two daughters, what Andy has been going through. You know, he went out and did the search for his, you know, for his sister. This is the big brother going out there with, you know, hundreds of searchers, and he did a great job profiling evil, covered it. Dr. Phil, he was on Dr. Phil. So we in the true crime community, the good ones that were covering this case, got very good exposure, whereas your cousin was taken, and this is what brings me to my next point about control, was taken just as Suzanne Morphew was taken by Barry Morphew from their hometown in Indiana where they were, and he removed them and took him and his wife to the kind of the wilderness, right? They're in the mountains. He's a hunter. He's a landscape guy. But what about her? You know, you have a beautiful woman who fought cancer ×2, right? And removed her from where her brother is. Now, I'm not going to get into family dynamics, as I wouldn't get into your family dynamics with your cousin, because it's not respectful. But irregardless of family dynamics, no matter what the case may be, this is a way of a controlling narcissistic person, and that suffers from maybe many control disorders, to remove a person from anybody's grip where they can detect a problem. Just like with Clara, she was going back and forth to work, but she was unable to communicate with you guys back at home. She was taken from Mexico, right? They met at some kind of religious convention or religious event, and they married quickly. And he shipped her up to Kelowna. Is that how it's pronounced? Kelowna, British Columbia. I mean, that's the furthest place you can go from Mexico all the way up into Canada. So that ensured him to have complete control over her, right?
Yes, and that was one of the things that we joked about at first, was, you know, that he had jumped her over the United States completely, even past where her sister lives in you know, Oregon, and lived over there. And that was one of the things that I experienced in my first marriage, was the isolation. Although I was always close in proximity to my family, I lived within 5 miles from my mother, but didn't have her in my home for over 3 years. And only got to see her for like maybe an hour or two, because everything was very tightly controlled. And having the circle of friends outside of my relationship was really instrumental in getting me out. And that's one of the things that I am so grateful for. And I praise the family of friends that Clara had, because if it weren't for them, I don't know that we would have known what happened to the girls. When you have time is always the thing that really makes a big difference in finding out. They have those shows, you know, 48 hours, and it's that really really key element on whether a person gets caught and found, you know, the bodies become found in this case, or if it stays unsolved or becomes cold. And that's one of the things that, because her friends knew it was out of character, because they did have somewhat of an idea of the relationship and what was going on, they knew to check on her. They knew to go to her house. They also knew not to believe when Jacob said that she had left him.
Right.
And I can only imagine the stories he would have had time to unravel and to create for us. Like maybe she took the girls and disappeared and she's somewhere in Mexico, or went to the other side of Canada, or left him and took him and doesn't want to be found again. And we wouldn't have those answers. But because she did have a connection, because she lived in a city and she had a job, all of those things contributed to the fact that they were able to find Clara and the girls in the home very quickly. When I think about this case here, I was looking at the map of their house and I'm thinking, wow, their neighbors probably weren't very close. And even when you have close neighbors, the people that live closest to you are often the most isolated from you. I lived in a cul-de-sac with many homes in a gated community. I didn't know my neighbors until after my husband was removed from the house. And Clara's family, their neighbors knew the girls, but hadn't really met or known Clara, which is odd because she was such a warm and loving human being. She would be the lady in the neighborhood who would, bake cookies and bake things, and what I could imagine would have wanted to share that, but that's part of that control and isolation. And I wonder, I can only contemplate if this is a similar situation where she has there's no close neighbors. And I don't know if she, had friends that might have insight, but I bet her family members would have insight on that.
Right. And the thing about this, Mav, is that I strongly believe too in that she did not have many close people, because she was brought from a place where she was very comfortable in Indiana to a place, like you said, we looked at the aerials. I've done 20 plus videos on this case. They're in the middle of the mountains, and a woman across the street or down the road from her allegedly called 911 that she saw her go out for a bike ride. We don't know if that's confirmed or if that's true. That was just conversation. But the daughters have been quiet. Barry gave that 26-second. I won't even give him the pleasure of playing that. I try not to play that. I played it, I think, once or twice. He and his nephew made these pleas. And as a law enforcement professional, and I always say this case reeks of guilt. And now, we all know in the court of law, you need evidence. There needs to be concrete evidence. It doesn't need to be a body recovered necessarily, as we know from previous cases, that you can get a conviction with circumstantial evidence and some strong circumstantial evidence. But that being said, the lack of communication from the Morphew girls, from anybody out, besides Andy and Jean, her father, poor guy. I mean, he's in bad health. So we all look at this and we say, what's going on? But, there's so many factors that come into play. Are they shy people that like my wife is camera shy? If I asked her to come in, she'd be like, what are you, crazy? Nevertheless, with 500 video cameras in front of all the news. So maybe that comes into play, and we have to respect that. I think it's the job of the police to keep the public informed. And I've vocally and visually said that I feel that they should update the community. And this is now a national case. Everybody's talking about it. It's on Dr. Phil. Nancy Grace is covering it. How about an update from the FBI? And I don't know about you, Mav, but if you got no updates from your cousin's case, and Jacob wasn't arrested or didn't admit to during his early parts of his trial because of his guilt, if he didn't say that, or they didn't have someone in custody, and your cousin and her two beautiful daughters were just found murdered, and now the police in British Columbia weren't saying anything, wouldn't you be shouting from the rooftops?
Yes, and that in some instances did happen with the family, because the specifics of how were not released, and there were close family members who have chosen not to know. And then everybody else was kind of waiting for the people who did know to give them information. And I knew what had happened.
Right.
Her brother had known, and my mother didn't know. And I said, if you want to know, I'm happy to share that. Not happy, but I'm glad to share that I can. That's the thing, is having these answers at least gives the family the opportunity to know what happened. And it was important for me to know, because I was not buying that this was just a one time. He'd never raised his temper with her, that he was just in an alcohol withdrawal. I didn't believe that. I didn't believe that it was a very calm situation. I knew that there was way more to it. And so I needed to know. And having that information solidified in my mind that this was not a person that I was immediately willing to forgive, that I needed to forgive, or that needed to be let go on easy charges. The original charges that Jacob was facing was second degree, and I'm so grateful for the Crown to continue to pursue those first degree charges. I know for our United States justice, it seems ridiculous that there's even a possibility that he could live out the sentences. But for Canada and for that area, it was landmark, and people were shocked that this happened. And I was glad for that,
That's an amazing thing that you mentioned there, is like, we can't fathom the thought of a human being wiping out his entire family, right? Chris Watts is in jail for the rest of his life without the chance of parole. But we have this case here where it's a landmark case. It's groundbreaking in Canada, never been done before. But he shouldn't be able to get parole. Look at what happened here with parole and bail reform. We have a New York City police officer who was killed 47 years ago. He was killed, and I highlighted this case, not on my YouTube channel, but I shared it on my video, the crime and the police and crime chat group on Facebook. If you're not subscribed to my channel, please hit the subscribe button, hit that notification bell so you'll get all things DutyRon. Also follow me on all things social media, all one word, DutyRon. I will link Mob's social media also in the description down below after this video concludes. But I highlighted the police officer who was murdered at the hands of the Black Liberation Army. That's 47 years ago. Two New York City police officers were lured into the housing projects in Harlem and gunned down. They were attacked. Their weapons were removed from them, and one was shot 22 times with his own weapon. The murderer killed him by shooting him 22 times. His widow came on national television and begged and pleaded with the parole board. They released him. They released the murderer after 47 years. He still is unremorseful for what he did, and now he's going to be given the right to vote. Go out and vote. This is just a despicable situation that's going on with our criminal justice system here. Somebody that has stood over a New York City police officer, someone that was there to uphold law and order and take his own weapon and shoot him 22 times, is now a free person. And the murderer of the second police officer was released just 2 months earlier. There's been 17 cop killers released on parole since 2017 under the Governor Andrew Cuomo and Mayor de Blasio's administration. So not to get political, but this ties into this case. Now, if we have an arrest, as we have up in Mob's cousin's case up in Canada, if he is going to be released, we've already spoken about it, her and I. We're going to do everything that we can to write letters to the parole board, write letters up there. And even if I have to take a trip to Canada and represent that family, I'll go as far as doing that. And those of you who know me know that I will travel. I will travel for a good cause, because this is all about justice. This is justice for this woman right here and the rest of her entire family. I don't know the dynamic of Clara's mom and dad, if they're still alive, but I'm sure that her extended family are still around. And this to me is a travesty of justice, what happened and what the release of the murder of a New York City police officer. And this just happened days ago. So I'm livid about that. But getting back to Suzanne Morphew, there's people out, there's other people that are out trying to continue to search for her, adventure channels and different other live streaming channels, and people that are out there that have the skills, that are going out there and putting their efforts forward. So I tip my cap to those people who are going out there and putting an effort forward, because we have to assume and know that they're doing this for the good of the Mormon, Andy, Jean, and the Morphew family, to find the her remains, to bring her home or to find her. You know, the chances of, I spoke about this with Mav before we went live, the chances of Suzanne being found alive are very slim, but there always is a chance that it could happen. There could be a miracle. We pray to God, and I'm a Catholic, and I know, Mav, you are religious as well. We pray to God that, you know, she's somehow a miracle is brought forward, but the chances, as we know, are slim. But, you know, how do you feel about the community, the true crime community, and the people out in, you know, just regular people, human beings, wanting to know answers from the police and from the family? What's your take on that, Mav, as a family member of a victim of a crime here, of a heinous murder? How do you feel about that? Well, how would you feel if people were saying, hey, Mav, you should be doing news conferences? What's your take on that? And I think everybody in the audience really has a want and a need to hear maybe someone else's take that's a victim like yourself.
I think, well, first I wanted to say I'm seeing some of the comments come in, and my prayers are with anybody who is, you know, surviving the loss of their loved ones in this capacity, especially if you don't know or don't have justice yet. I know we have been fortunate that we were able to get a sentence and we didn't have to go through. We had a surprise at the trial, and we had a short amount of time compared to what many people are dealing with. I have a really good friend whose aunt and her unborn child at 8 months was murdered by her boyfriend, and the perpetrator was finally passed away in prison and is no longer needing to go to those parole hearings. And that happened in a time before YouTube, before any social media. And the support there really does come from the people that know, and you have to shout it from the rooftops to keep this memory alive and for people to know what happened. And that's one of the things that I'm a little bit sad that for our case, that it has been quieted so much. And that's because it's a difficult subject for my family to talk about, domestic violence, and to admit that it exists, or to admit that this even happened. And so when you have no answers and you don't know what happened, I can only imagine what that agony must be like. And I think it's really important that these cases are covered. Obviously, we want to keep the integrity of the cases as they are being investigated, and that does come down to the responsibility of the detectives and also the people, you know, working on the case. But we also need to have the information out there. We need to have people coming forward, whether it's publicly or to the authorities, that have information and have knowledge about the dynamics of the family, and to give that insight. It's really hard when you don't have, you know, concrete evidence. You know, what we found with Suzanne Morphew, her bike and a helmet, doesn't jive with the stories that are the theories that the husband is saying. So for me, I crave to know what happened. I crave for her. I believe, you know, as you said, I'm religious, I'm a pastor, and I do believe that their blood cries out from the wilderness, that their blood cries out, and that they are there to be found, and that it takes people wanting to find them. It takes the tenacity of the families, and it's exhausting. It is so exhausting. When I was watching some of the interviews with the brother, and he's like, I'm going home, I'm tired, I miss my family. That is something, it takes its toll on the family, but I don't believe that he's ever going to give up. I think that the more he pushes and keeps this case hot, then there are more chances for things to be uncovered. And there are people who go into They spend their life. I think about John Walsh creating America's Most Wanted while looking for his son and not
Thank
having.
you for bringing that up. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and the tenacity there. And then I have a student who has been dear to my heart who lost her mother to domestic violence. And she is now, when I was teaching in high school, and now she's graduating law school, and she's going to become a lawyer, and she's working right now in police departments in California, and she is doing cold cases. She's the person who's going in and opening up boxes and looking at evidence and giving it a fresh look and using the technology and being, a millennial kid, having all this knowledge of how things connect digitally now, and with the hope that other families get this closure and find where their loved ones are. And it takes people not forgetting, and it takes people being willing to speak up and say, it's not okay.
Yeah, I mean, what a great statement right there, Mav. I concur with you 1000% on that. Annie Menjow, I know I'm probably messing up the name. 21 years my sister has been missing. My heart and my prayers go out to you, and I send strength and positive vibes to you and your family. That's 21 agonizing years. So again, there's so many people, there's so many stories out there. And like someone said to me in an email, hey, DutyRon, I know that you're covering Suzanne Morphew, but what about all of the other people that are missing? And we're only human beings. We're not machines, right? This isn't a big, large computer system where we're just dealing out digital information. It's only humanly possible to cover X amount of cases, right? There are, and I know this because of my profession, I've answered so many missing persons calls. I've looked up the statistics. The statistics are astronomical of the amount of people who go missing. But the amount of cases that people are found or come home are very high too. But there is still that 100,000, around 100,000-ish people a year go missing, and the cases never get closed. So that's 100,000 people that are still outstanding. Now, whether it's to, child trafficking, sex trafficking, murders where people are disposed of in different various heinous ways where there's no evidence that could be found. Yeah, those are all extreme possibilities. And that's the clear and imminent danger that we face just by going out. I'll give you an example. Okay. Even me as a police officer, right? You would think I'm over protective and oversensitive to these things because I've seen them, right? So my wife just today said, I'm going to go out shopping. And as everybody knows, and anybody that's part of the DutyRon family knows, that I'm her personal bodyguard. I drive her around. I go to the shopping places with her, not because I love to sit in the car and drive her around, but I'm always worried in the back of my mind that someone's going to grab her and take her and I'll never see her again. But now that's not how I live and breathe. But what I'm saying is today she went out, and I said to her, I'm going to stick home. I got an important thing, this case. I have something important I want to cover. I want to get it out there. I want to talk about Suzanne Morphew, and I want to have some special guests on. And she was like, this is a loving wife. We're married 30 years come March of 2021. She said, babe, go and do your thing. I'm good. I'm going to go shopping. I'll be for a couple of hours. I said, just keep in touch with me. But in the back of my mind, I am always thinking about it. So what happens is people go missing all the time. And we just go about our day and we're doing our thing. And you can't sit there and harp on every one of these cases. But when you have something like this, where you got a guy who comes onto Facebook and gives a plea of 26 seconds and then vanishes, then there's crickets for months and months and months. And he gets trapped and cornered by another YouTuber or a person that was trying to, get some information from him. And that's the only other next thing we hear. And then some other BS interviews by audio. The guy won't even go on camera. It just makes us all suspicious, right? That something's brewing, something's fishy, something doesn't smell right. So I'm not saying the guy is guilty, because until he's proven in the court of law and charged and tried, I'm just saying the hairs on my arm, which is not a lot, they're standing up when this guy is acting. The actions speak louder than words, and there's a lack thereof of words. Right. So for anybody, and never mind the NYPD detective, someone who's investigated criminals, I've heard every excuse under the sun that the person, I've had people on video committing a shooting somebody on video, and then I'm debriefing them in front of me, and they say, I didn't do that. So there you have it. But, you know, to tie in Mav into Suzanne Morphew, for me, was a fantastic fit, because it gives the ladies and gentlemen of the audience here now, over 300 people watching this live stream, there's an extreme interest in this case. And there's an extreme interest in answers and perspectives from somebody like yourself. So Mav, you're here providing a service. These people are not here to watch me. They're here to listen to you. So I commend you for coming on, and we're not ending this by any means, but you know, I really love and respect what you've done to keep your cousin's memory alive and her case alive. And I'm going to continue, as we spoke, to fight with you to keep her case in the limelight. And in the next at least few weeks, we're going to get together and we're going to do a live stream about Clara. And we're going to talk about her life, and we're going to talk about what's going on. And we're going to also talk about, you know, the ways people can maybe in the future just kind of identify the signs, because you, Mav, told me you saw the signs. Talk about the signs that you told me about with Mav and her boyfriend at the time before they got married, about his control.
So one of the things that we used to comment that, you know, he really didn't want her when they dated for a very short amount of time. And one of the things that bothered me a little bit was that, and it was just, you know, the little bits about, you know, scolding her about activities she was doing, like she's having too much fun, or she's being too boisterous, or she's drinking a beer or something like that.
Was this in the name of religion?
Yes. So we do come from a very religious family, and you know, we would go out as teenagers. Sorry to bust anybody who doesn't want, you know, we used to go out as teenagers and, you know, hang out. And I was much older than the group of teenagers that she was in, but we would go camping in Mexico, and, you know, she would come along and have fun and, you know, do the normal things, but he would disapprove. And then he also didn't approve of her talking to certain family members. And there are other family members that still have these beliefs, that, you know, if the other person's a bad influence, and we're talking about a grown woman. And that's something that I think is really important to pay attention to, the words that a person who is controlling uses, like, you know, that person's a bad influence on you. I'm sorry, but if my husband now said that to me, I'd kind of, you know, go, well, I'm a grown woman. Why, you know, what do you think about, like, what do you think about me that I can't control myself, you know? And maybe talk about the behaviors specifically, but not trying to isolate from other people, especially family members. We would go years without seeing her. And we are a very tight-knit family. We meet every single year on Labor Day. This was the second time ever that I remember in 40 years ever canceling. And COVID, you know, once we had a death in the family, and then the other time it was because of COVID. Those are the only 2 times in 40 years that I remember ever having canceled this family gathering. And, you know, there are various years where certain people wouldn't be able to make it, but it was a special treat to get to see her. The parents were allowed to come and visit, and they would see sometimes, but they saw right before in November, they saw signs that were indicative. And I am interested in knowing what her close friends saw, because for me, my husband at the time would call me. I would go out to visit friends or to go to dinner or see my parents, and within 15 minutes, my phone would be blowing up. He would call me, you know, 30 to 50 times to see where I was. He would call the restaurant that I was supposed to be at. He would call work randomly to see where I was. Things like that were just weird and abnormal. If you have neighbors, and I don't think that it's the same as it used to be where you would know your neighbors, but know your neighbors, say hi to them. You never know. Say
Absolutely.
hi. And if you have a friend who you think that their relationship is being a little bit controlling, say something at the risk of alienating your friends. Say, you know, that that bothered me when he or she spoke to you that way. Is this happening often? And understand that when you do it and you do speak up, you are at risk of becoming alienated from that person. But I had friends who just didn't stop. They called anyways, they came over anyways, they talked to me anyways, and they never stopped saying it. And you know what? They're still around. My ex-husband is not, you know.
I wanted to interject here because I know that you're, these are very great things that you're saying here, but Suzanne Morphew was also married a long time. This wasn't just something that, this is what's crazy about this case, is that they were together so long, and there's rumors swirling that there's an other woman involved. And I don't get into that. I don't talk about it because it doesn't help to solve the case. If the guy was a cheater, and I'm just throwing this out there to the true crime people and the people who listen, from a law enforcement standpoint, and I hate to always keep saying that because people get pissed off when I always say that, but I have to reel it in. From an investigators and law enforcement standpoint, we do look at a significant other, but it's not always the denominator in what is the motivating factor, i.e. your cousin. It wasn't thought that he was cheating on her because he was a godly person, right? Supposedly, but we don't know. And if we started creating that rumor, that false rumor that there was a significant other, whether it was a church woman that, you know, listen, I've been around the Catholic Church a long time. My mother had crushes on the priests. She used to love the priests because she thought that they could heal her and save her, right? So my mother used to buy steaks and buy like gifts for the priest. And her mom, my grandmother, God rest her soul, she lived to 101. She used to say to my mom, "Why are you giving Father Fanero steaks?" And my mother was like, "Because I love him." And she would look at him. So there could be women that that are groupies of, you know, an influencer, or a guy who's big in the church. A guy like Barry has his own business. He's a big strapping guy. He's in good shape, and you know, he's not an ugly looking guy. Like, look at me. I mean, I'm a sight for sore eyes, right? Who's coming for a groupie for DutyRon? Nobody. But I'm just saying, so these are some kind of mitigating factors that come into play. But if we don't have evidence that he, along with this alleged significant other or girlfriend that he had on the side, committed nefarious behavior, then, you know, like it goes back to Chris Watts too. Everybody was tying in that NK, right? That she had something to do with it and that she needed to be hogtied and dragged in. I was all for it. But how could you hog tie and drag someone in without any substantial evidence to make an arrest? You can't do it. But your family, Suzanne Morphew, two so completely different stories. She's missing, presumed missing until found, or until a certain time period goes by. But law enforcement is now presuming that she is not alive. There's no account activity on her credit cards. There's no money in her bank accounts for her survivability. There's no records of her leaving the country. All of this, the FBI and the CBI, I know the FBI checks all of the movement, and it's really literally very difficult for you to just vanish off the face of the earth purposely. In other words, for me to just poof and go to, say, even if I went to Aruba or I went to another country, there would be some type of financial transactions that they'd be able to find me through, electronic transactions, because you can't just create, you know, it's not, it can happen, but it takes some really sneaky stuff to do that. So I feel that, you know, the importance of you getting out some information here for people to understand that men and women alike turn evil at times. And in a relationship, whether it's a 30-year one or a 2-year one or a brand new one or something in between, there's no clear answer of what the trigger is. What triggers a loved one, someone who you've had children with? Like, you are a victim of domestic violence, you told me, right? So how could someone purport to say that they love you and then now beat you?
Or
It
just
doesn't.
driving, and sometimes they tell you. So there was a comment that came through, and I'd have to go back and look, but someone said, and I've heard this many times, and I've said it myself, when and this is one of the things that I'm just wondering if there are any friends that ever got this message or not. Sometimes sometimes it's really hidden. But for me, I told a friend of mine, something ever happens to me, he did it.
Right. Yeah.
Like, just plain, if something ever happens to me, he did it. And this is where you're going to look for the places where I wrote it down. Like, I'm going to leave a trail, and you're going to have no question in my mind.
See,
And
you were smart and brave. Not many people are smart and brave. They get into positions where they're trapped. So this whole domestic violence thing, and I think you and I spoke about this briefly, I think you'd really like to get together with me and have a good conversation about the importance of domestic violence, because I think you can bring to the forefront some firsthand experience to help other women, because as we speak in this live stream and in the replays, and I want to say a special thank you to the replay viewers. Here I am 45 minutes into this live stream and I didn't say it. So thank you to the replay viewers for watching. The replay viewers are tremendous, and the people who let the commercials run, because what happens is the YouTube will look at this title and they'll see crime victim and they'll demonetize it. So the commercials and things like that, they don't run. So the super chatters, the people who become channel members, and the people who comment down below, just interaction with the channel helps. But when they demonetize, this is just a video and a live stream that we've created to help people and to help people understand the inner workings of what happens in a family that is in a suspended animation, so to speak, for lack of better words. The Morphew family, the Mormon family, have no answers. And that is heartbreaking on so many levels, right? Us as good Christians and good people, we say, God, why are you putting these people through this? Andy's father, Gene, is fighting cancer. Suzanne was, a two-time cancer survivor. Why do we go through this? Why does this happen? So there's lots of unanswered questions, and it makes us question our faith and question our being. But the best thing that we could do as good human beings, as ex-law enforcement, as you as a victim of domestic violence and a victim of a heinous crime committed against your cousin, we can speak. We could speak our truths. We could talk about education from a real person's we've been there, we've done it, right? As me from the law enforcement side, you from the victim side. So when you have real people who are providing good information out to the general public, that's our way of giving back. And if we can help one person to not become a victim of a crime, or help one family who's struggling to get answers for a missing loved one, then this was successful. I don't know if you can agree with me on that. I think you can, right?
yes, and keep them important. Keep Suzanne important. If you have a loved one that you're waiting for answers or waiting for conviction or whatever part of the process, keep them important. Keep them known. Talk about them. Let it be known. There are times where, unfortunately, in certain areas where cases go cold because they're no longer important. Other things come up that are bigger, and it really takes the friends and the families and the loved ones. We have a friend from my husband's music scene in San Diego who went missing in like Humboldt County, where people go missing all the time. And there were no answers, and we knew that there were witnesses, but it became cold. There's a video out there and a documentary about it, and what really ended up moving the case forward to where we at least knew what happened. Still waiting for conviction, but at least we knew what happened. Was the private investigators, was the friends and families fundraising and continuing to make him important, continuing to go out there. There was one friend who was his best friend that just would not let it rest. She wouldn't let it rest. And because of that, that's the reason why the answers came out. So keep Suzanne important. Keep her important. Let her voice cry. Let the evidence rise to the surface. I pray for that as I see these cases. And we do find that the evidence comes out. And it's not always the physical evidence that we're looking for in those searches. Sometimes it's the stuff behind the scenes where somebody says something and tips off the investigation in a specific way, where they find that, you know, that puzzle piece that links everything together to where there's no question about who did it. And then we find that a lot of times the perpetrator is the one who says this is where they're at, or somebody else who says you need to look here specifically. And the more and the more and the more they're important, the harder it is for it to be ignored. So keeping these people important is really monumental here. And I thank you for that, Ron.
Yes, thank you so much. I can't agree with you more. The more we get the message out, the more you speak about it in a respectful and intelligent way, it really makes a difference. You got to keep that person's memory alive, keep their case alive. And it brings me to Profiling Evil. Mike King is in the chat. Mike, thank you so much for being in here and for all the work that you've done as a law enforcement professional. He is my brother in blue. Profiling Evil is going to be a special guest on my channel. We have some great things to talk about that Mike is doing. He is instrumental in reviving the Suzanne Morphew case. And I have to tip my cap to Mike and Chris for the great work that they've done. You guys have an awesome channel. I know that everybody that's here in this live stream are subscribed to Profiling Evil. Mav, I'm sure you are too. But you know, we love to share the good love and respect that goes out there. The channels that do it with pride and dignity, the Profiling Evil, I can't say enough good about those guys. They're tremendous. Half Rudder, thank you for the super chat. Thank you to all the super chatters. Half Rudder says you don't, DutyRon, have to be religious to be a good person and help the abused. 1 gazillion percent. Oh, 1,000 gazillion percent. You know, I said it, you know, humanity is what it's all about. I don't care if you're an atheist, you don't believe in anything. If you believe in being a good person, that's good enough for me. If you are kind to others and are not an evil person, then I'm all for it. I'll put my arms around you and I'll still pray for you. So at the end of the day, Half Rudder, that's a great comment, and I highlighted it purposely. Thank you for that super chat and all of the positive interaction here in the comment section. Almost 350, 335 people here in the chat. It is a true honor, and it just goes to show you, Mav, like I said, I wasn't sure how much interest this would get or how little, how big. It didn't matter to me, because what matters to me at the end of the day is that we, like you said, keep it alive, keep speaking about it. And, you know, I'm talking about the Thomas Valva case here, which is a local case. I can walk to the crime victim's home from my home. So this is a local community person who's lived here for a long time. And Justina is a victim herself of domestic violence, of abuse, and failed of the system. So I encourage you guys to watch my videos. The things that I talk about are not just blurts. Marie Winterthal, thank you for the $5 super chat. Keep up these great podcasts, DutyRon. Thank you so much for the super love. I like to call it super love. Thank you for that. And there goes my police sign. I knew that was going to happen. I banged into the chair. But it's an easy fix. Your guitar didn't fall, but my sign did. How about that? So yeah, you know, listen, I'm going to look at the chat real quick, Mav, if you don't mind, and maybe we'll pick out a couple of the questions. Are you looking at the chat too on your screen or no?
I am, and I'm seeing a couple that have come through. It's coming through so fast, so I'll let you go ahead and.
I don't usually do this, but I'm going to let you choose a few, Mav, because I love and respect you so much, and I know that you will choose the ones that are important and put them to the forefront. I'll highlight the ones that you choose.
Okay, I know somebody said it was a good question that it was a little bit earlier. It was talking about what do you do when you know what's going on and it's not moving forward. The case doesn't move forward, or the police are done listening. That is, oh goodness sakes, it was a little while ago.
All right. Well, that person that left that message, retype it in and send it. And in the meantime, we'll look at some of these chat questions and stuff that are coming through. And thank you to the moderators as we wait for a good question. I'll let Mav scan the channel as the comments while I do this. I want to say a special thank you to everyone who's respectful in the chat, who shows love and support for these crime victims and the families that we discuss here. The Suzanne Morphew case is at the forefront, and we really appreciate the dignity and respect that you do show for the crime victims. So a special thank you to everyone who watches on the replay and leaves comments down below in the comment section. All interaction is welcome. And Mav, if I didn't give you enough time to catch a question, then I'm sorry.
No worries, no worries. And then someone else asked about the church, and that was something that I hadn't spent a lot of time investigating, looking up, and the connection between the Suzanne Morphews and her husband and the church that they had belonged to. From what I remember, and I could be totally off, was that church was still in Indiana, and I don't know if they had a local community that they would have been a part of. And that's one of the things that it can go either way with the church connection for us. The church connection made a very solid environment for violence and for the you can get away with murder conversation. But in some cases, it's the opposite. It's where the church really does become active, and they're the ones that are like, hey, you need to get out of this, or, you need to, this isn't okay. And sometimes it's that closeness of that community. So I'm curious about that too, because the aspect of religion we've seen in the Vallow case that really seemed to play an interesting role in not only what happened, but also in finding the kids,
Yeah. Very, very, very true right there. Yolfa has sent in a message. She's a channel member, and I'm going to highlight it there on the screen. What can we bystanders do to help save our neighbors? And I think you touched on that before, Mav. I'll let you handle that because you did mention it before, but maybe she wasn't here for it.
Saying hello, introducing yourself, even if you've lived as neighbors for a long time. I lived in the same house for, 3 to 5 years before I met my neighbors. And it was the lady, the first time I met them was in a despair situation, but others have, our neighbors here, they come over, they knock on they did, but they wave hi, they say hello. We have a neighbor who can literally see, and he's probably what someone would consider nosy. I appreciate that right now, having been through what I've been through, in that he knows our comings and goings. He says hi. He introduced himself even from far away. They want to know about the family. Don't, obviously be creepy people, but just being like, hi, my name is, and if you ever need me for any reason, saying something like that, if you ever need me for any reason, night or day, knock on my door.
Yeah. That's awesome. And I'll expand on that. I'll give you guys a quick story that happened about a half a year ago, probably about maybe before the COVID breakout. So it was probably February. It was cold out. My neighbor next door, our homes are kind of close together. I heard a girl crying, and they're new. They only moved in probably within a year prior to this incident that I heard. I heard a woman crying. It sounded like a woman to me. It was loud enough to where it sounded concerning to me. And it's an Indian family. So they have the parents live across the street, and they live right next door to me. And I went to the parents and I said, I'm sorry. I'm not being nosy. I'm just concerned. I heard someone screaming and crying, and I want you to know, and I want to go over and check. And they hugged me like, thank you. And it turns out, without me, because I have people that watch me all over the place, without me going into specifics and details, there was something going on that I kind of headed it off in the past. And there was no incident of beating or anything like that, but it was more of a verbal thing. And it since then has subsided because I've checked. So that was just me. And, of course, it's ingrained and built into me. Law enforcement is my life. This is what I've done for 30 years or more. Even like I'll get my brother on here. He's a retired lieutenant, and my brother will tell you, my big brother, he'll say, you wanted to be a cop when you were 10 years old. I used to run around with the fake cop badges as a little kid, and I'd have it in my pocket. So it's kind of ingrained in my soul. You know, I always wanted to help people, but this is expanding on Yolfa's question. If you see something, say something. Don't be silent. And this is what the people of the Center Moriches, East Moriches community in Suffolk, that's where Thomas Valva, the 8-year-old, was frozen in his garage, hypothermia. His father froze his son to death. He was autistic, and he left him out in the garage with 19 degrees Fahrenheit temperatures and watched him on a camera die in his garage. The neighbors were interviewed, and they said, I wish we would have done more. I wish we would have called the police more, because they've obviously heard things and just said, I got to mind my own business. In this day and age, and in any day and age, you should never mind your own business when it comes to a concern that someone could be getting hurt. And if you're wrong, then you could sleep good at night, knowing that you put your effort forward. Right, Mav? I mean, my dad wasn't a cop. There's someone just asking a question. It's not in my family. Just me and my brother. And I had a distant cousin who was a lieutenant in the NYPD, and he kind of mentored me a little bit once I got on the job, but it's not part of my family makeup. I don't know where I got it, but it's somewhere along my bloodline. And it might have just been something as a kid that I saw. You know, it might have just been, you know, I remember my father and my mother, they were divorced at a young age. And I've never really spoken about this, but my dad used to get violent and was a drinker. And he threw the Christmas tree through the front window of our home when we were little kids. And my grandmother called the police on him. And I remember being really scared. And I was very young. I was very young. I mean, I think I was under 10. And I remember holding on to my father's leg when the police were asking him to leave. And I think at that point is when I started wanting to be a police officer, because I remember how comforting I felt that they came and everything calmed down. My father was yelling and screaming, and I was kind of used to it. But I think that was one of the triggers that really wanted me to protect and serve, because they came and kind of saved me. So that's just a little tidbit of some DutyRon young experiences. And that's when people ask me, what made you become a cop? I always say, I want to help people, and I love, you know, to catch the bad guys. But I think that was one of the things that helped push me into this, into the career of law enforcement. So there's a little bit that comes out of some of the questions. I didn't see any more questions, Mav. I guess we covered it all here. What do you think?
I think so too, and I want to thank you all for staying interested in this stuff. For me, before, like I said, before I had any close experience, I was really curious. My husband jokes around that I can't watch scary movies, but I can watch true crime. And he's like, how can you watch this? It actually happened. And it's like, I want to know the details of it. The more we talk about it, that keeps it important. And I think it's important for us to highlight the victims and not the, you know, and I think there's a lot more sensation in highlighting the perpetrators.
Yeah.
Take away their platform if they're trying to be notorious. Let us forget their names, but let us never forget the victims and who they are and who their families, because it goes forever. It never stops. You never stop being a victim of this, and that it happened, but you can stop being a victim of the control that these people have. So right now, whatever happened to Suzanne, whoever did this to her, whoever's responsible, they get to have control until they don't anymore. And the more that we talk about it, the more that people are looking. And I'm praying for her family. I'm praying for the families of everybody again, that they are found and that you have a way to take that control, even if it's the little bit that you have in talking about it.
Yes, 100%, 100%. I'm just looking at some questions that were sent to me on Messenger. So it's a blessing. Charlotte D says, it's a blessing to have people spend their time keeping Suzanne and others in the public eye, Imagine how it gets under the skin of the person, in parentheses, who made her disappear. Keep it up. God bless. That's from Charlotte D in the chat. And thank you to Retired Irish Detective Mav. There's a lot of my cop friends who follow me and subscribe that I work patrol with. And Retired Irish Detective, how cliche is that, right? Law enforcement in New York City in the early 1900s were all Irish American immigrants and Italian. It was the makeup. It's the history. I'm not just saying it to say it. It was the makeup and history of the NYPD. And thank you for becoming a channel member, Alley Cat. Thank you so much. And look at her profile picture. Pain changes people. Thank you for joining. So he shared that message with me. That's part of his detective work in the chat. And he is one of my moderators. He's a brother in blue. I work the mean streets of Brooklyn and East New York with you, Retired Irish Detective. I tip my cap to you, my brother in blue. Thank you for being in here. And thank you for sending me the message. He said, DutyRon, check your private message. And if I didn't check it, it probably would have came with a couple of expletives after that if I didn't. So thank you, Dennis, for, and that's Retired Irish Detective. Let me highlight him and put him in the chat. There he is. There he is, Retired Irish Detective with an LOL. He's got a great family line of police and detectives that run in his family as well. And thank you for your service, Dennis, for everything that you've done. We've gone through the World Trade Center and all of the reductions in homicides and guns taken off the street and all things of that nature. So thank you for all you've done. We want to highlight Suzanne Morphew in this live stream, and I think we've done a good job. And the great job comes in, I think, is with Mav B, Miss Mav B, for being in here, taking time out from her family on a Saturday. I understand she had to make them special Halloween pancakes to get this live stream in the books. So kudos to you, Mav. Thank you so much for serving up those pancakes to the hubby and the fam. So that's great.
Thank you. Yep, I gotta have them watch the puppies because they'll come and bug me all day long. So
Okay.
borrowing my son's room and everything, and it was nice and wonderful. So I appreciate everyone.
Mav, I'm gonna link you. I'm gonna link your social media in the chat, and anything else that you ask me to link, I'll link it down in the description below. Would you please come back, and would you be I would love to have you, as I know that you're a busy mom and a busy, woman, you're a career woman and you're out there. If you could come back, I'd love to have you back often. You're just an awesome guest. You have so much to give to the online community through your experience. And I would love to have you back on a regular basis every once in a while, whenever you can see fit to serving up those pancakes for the troops.
Absolutely, anytime. Like I
Awesome.
said, I really enjoy this topic. I don't enjoy that it exists as much as it does, but it is important, and I'm appreciative of this community. You've got the best community. I've watched a lot of videos, and I just got to say that every time I pop in and see the comments coming in and your channel members, they are so amazing. You guys are really, really amazing. And I've found a lot of comfort in the comments that I've seen in cases that remind me of ours. And that's really something that I don't know if you know, but I think is important to acknowledge, is that when you're so respectful and you have so much love for one another, it goes across this platform and it goes into the hearts of people who are interacting and listening. So keep it up. You guys are amazing.
You see, that's a testament not just to me, but to all of us here. And I always say that, Mav, I know you can't be around for all the live streams, but I mention it all the time about how without the great community that we've created here, and it's all of us, we're in it together. We're, as cliche as that sounds, we're all in this together. But with guys like Joey Brooklyn and all of my moderators and all the people who watch after the chat, there are people that slip through the ranks, right? And they are quickly crushed and eliminated. So most people that are up to no good know that they can't exist here. And that's part of my duty to my subscribers and my friends. Helen Phillips, thank you for the $50 super chat, super sticker. Much love and respect to you. Thank you for your generous donation. I'll be paying most of my super chats this month forward to Justina, the mom who is a victim of her son being murdered at the hands of his father. So most of my proceeds this month will go to Justina for going forward into the holiday of Thanksgiving and Christmas. So I'll be paying forward most of the donations that come in to Justina Zupko Valva. So thank you again to all of my channel members, my Patreon supporters, the people who subscribe to this channel, to hit the thumbs up, give the video a thumbs up, leave a comment for Mav and myself down in the comment section. I know for a fact that Mav she'll be scrolling through the comments. She'll be checking out the left after the live stream. That's the wonderful part about YouTube, is you can continue the conversation after the live stream. We've just done 1 hour of live streaming, but the conversation continues. So make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, share it out onto all social media platforms. One word, DutyRon. Subscribe to Mav on her social media. She's got some great stuff that she puts up. A lot of great photos, a lot of cool stuff. But she's going to be a part of this DutyRon family, and she's part of my family. I love and respect her tremendously. So thank you, Mav. Stick around, Mav, after I hit the end broadcast, and we'll just chit chat for another 2 minutes, and then I'll let you go. So any final words for the troops, Mav?
Thank you. Thank you. And keep these people important, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Mav. God bless the world. God bless the United States of America. But most importantly, God bless each and every one of us. And God bless Suzanne Morphew, Andy Mormon, Jean Mormon, the Morphew girls, and everybody that's affected by crime throughout our world. God bless, and have a great weekend, people. Thank you.